Hello, it's Scott Manley here, back with Elite Dangerous, and, well, when we last left me, I had completed a 22,000 light-year trek across the galaxy to help repair Jacques' station. The community goal for that completed, and I was in the top 25%, got myself an extra 6 million credits for it, so not great, but actually community goals in general are pretty good. Then, while I was enjoying Jacques' hospitality, they launched another community goal to deliver osmium to Jacques' station. Now, thankfully, this didn't mean a 44,000 light-year trek to the bubble and back. No, osmium is something that you can mine from asteroids. So they were asking explorers to fit out their nice, shiny exploration ships with mining lasers and get their hands dirty, I guess. Thanks to the huge amount of interest from the previous community goal, we now have decent services at Jacques Station, so I can take my cargo rack and replace it with a refinery. I have a size 3 cargo rack, and then the question was just how many bins I want on this. Technically, I only need the one because I need osmium. But like many things in Elite, it's a balance between cash and convenience. And, you know, being a bit of a cheapskate who tends to find mining rather boring, I went with a middle-of-the-range option. And now it's time to head out into the unknown, looking for undiscovered rocks containing unmined minerals. Actually, who am I kidding? With this many explorers in one place, there is nothing undiscovered within 100 light-years of Jacques Station anymore. And there are several asteroid belts in it, but what we're looking for is pristine, metal-rich belts. There are rocky and icy belts which have different compositions, but we're looking for metal. Osmium is the metal, indeed it's the element with the highest density in nature. Its density is something like it's over 22 tons per cubic meter. It often comes up when we're talking about the physics of Kerbal Space Program, because the tiny planets in Kerbal Space Program shouldn't have as much gravity as they do, even if they were made of osmium. But let us forget realistic physics as we fly across this star system at 4 times regular speed, of course, with the music playing 4 times regular speed. Meanwhile, the spacecraft itself was traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light before I get to the belt. And I'm greeted with rocks! Rocks as far as the eye can see. One day, this will all be yours, lad. First order of business is I need to shut down some non-essential systems right now. Because this spacecraft is stripped down and optimized for exploration, it doesn't quite have the extra power that it needs to run the lasers, the mining lasers, and the refinery. So I turn off some non-essential systems, and now I need to figure out which asteroids have osmium in them. I don't have the space to strip out some of these extra systems, so instead I'm gonna have to just shoot the asteroids and figure out which ones have have the right bits come out. If you're a dedicated miner, you will probably have a limpet drone control system, which means you can use the prospector limpets. You fire those into the asteroids and it'll tell you which ones contain which minerals. There are also collector drones that will collect the minerals for you, but I don't have that luxury. So I'm just going to be shooting them and watching as minerals come out. You see the white sensor markers coming out? Just hit this until my laser cools down and then we'll take a look at what we've got. Target. There we go. It's praseodymium, which I was actually needing for one of the frameshift drive upgrades while I was back in the bubble. Luckily for you, you don't have to sit through 15 minutes of me shooting asteroids and then trying to find another one and then realizing that I'd forgotten which ones I'd previously shot. It would be nice if I could tag the rocks that I previously looked at, perhaps either by, you know, slamming some paint into them or simply by writing my initials on the one side of them with a laser. But hallelujah, the gods of random numbers have shined upon me, and I have osmium, I have lipidolite, I have other stuff. And soon we will be scooping this up for the joy of all at Jacques. Okay, cargo scoop, lowered. Target this thing, and then to the left of the scanner there is a little screen that you use to line these things up. It would be really cool if I could line this just right so that when I shot the stuff it just kind of floated into my bay, but we don't have tractor beams. in the Elite universe. We don't have any gravity manipulation technology that provides artificial gravity or tractor beams or any of these things. What am I looking for here? Just trying to get this. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Very gently. Very slowly. Because there's a whole pile of them here and I don't want to just plow into the middle and send them scattering if I can keep them all together. Like that. I want just like a giant space net. That would be a lot easier than those drones. Just something that requires slightly less precise targeting so I can just sit with the net open and have the minerals fly into it as I shoot them off the asteroid. The only thing is my refinery is busy with things. I'm gonna get rid of the silver because I really don't care for the silver. It's pretty cheap. Indite, let's throw that away. Osmium! I've got my first little piece of osmium. Now where's the rest of the asteroid fragments? Of course, one of the downsides to trying to pick up all these things is that as you're moving slowly, your rotation rate is artificially slowed. So I end up going backwards and forwards. I tend to run back and forth like I'm mowing a lawn. So you drive in, pick up some stuff, reverse, target, and then drive back in again. Anyway, thanks to the magic of editing, you can share in that moment where I refined my first sweet, sweet piece of osmium. Oh, it's so tasty, it's so wonderful, and I know that Jacques will appreciate it. I heard that Jacques was a bartender. He probably just makes cocktails with this or something. It's just like a little garnish that goes on the side. Maybe he uses it instead of ice cubes, you know, drop some of that stuff into the glass, and then keeping the drinks chill like that, right? Anyway, after that first mining jaunt, I returned to the station to sell my spoils, a single ton of osmium, which, if you do the math, is actually pretty tiny. Like, it's a cube not much more than 1 foot across. I mean, it's interesting as well because osmium doesn't have the heaviest nucleus, it's the bulk properties that make it very dense. Anyway, there we go, 1 ton collected, top 25%. This was definitely a community goal where the barrier to entry was rather low. Well, other than that whole flying 22,000 light years to get to it. I did mine a little more, but this is an exploration ship, and we are a little closer to the core of the galaxy. And so, having recovered from 22,000 light years of travel, we thought it would be a shame to not visit the core of the galaxy. Sagittarius A is generally considered to be the center of the galaxy. It's a supermassive black hole, and it's about 12,000 light years from Jacques station. Now, I was previously making 2,000 light years per hour, but that was with a full load of cargo. Now, I should be able to go a bit faster. On the other hand, I do actually want to do some exploring, so I'd really like to be discovering some of those water or Earth-like worlds. And so the journey through the core won't be 100% honk jumping. Honk jumping is, of course, where you jump into the system, fire your long-range scanner, and then jump out without actually looking at the contents of the system. But here we go! This will be a long one, 12,000 light years to the core and then 35,000 light years back to the regular bubble. If I allow for a couple of detours, that should be about 40,000 light years or over 20 hours of pootering around in the galaxy. Identifying stars, finding planets, and perhaps occasionally landing to take some scenic pictures. And slowly going mad as I stare into the chaos that is witch space. At least in this version of Elite, it isn't populated by enemy ships that will occasionally assault you there. Anyway, standard protocol for these really long jumps is I line up with the target, fire the drive as soon as possible, and then immediately switch over to the system map to get a quick look in the countdown time. Is there anything here worth exploring? Basically looking for water worlds or Earth-like worlds, and if not, I exit out and hyperdrive. Rinse and repeat 1,000 times. Or at least 500 times to get to Sagittarius A. It's deep in the core, the star density is incredibly high, and that will actually pose its own problems. But this is a journey of discovery, so let's actually document some of the discoveries at Eoch Prue QOHD10-27, a snappy named system if ever I heard of one. I find what looks like a pair of binary water worlds. There's no way to cancel the frameshift drive charging from inside the map, so you have to switch back and forth after you find one of these. But yeah, then it's a case of looking around in a little more detail and then deciding to set course. 13,000 light seconds out is quite a long way, but there is 2 of them, so I'm prepared to make the trip. Investigating these potentially habitable planets does add a lot of time to my long journey, but it would be a real shame if I came this far away from Earth and didn't make a point of documenting any possible new homes. And so right away we come up with one Earth-like world, and nearby you can tell they're almost the same mass because the orbits relative to the barycenter are very, very close. And that would imply the conditions are probably very similar as well. Similar mass, same distance from the sun, very likely similar composition, and we have a pair of Earth-like worlds. 10,000 light years from the galactic core. Perhaps one day humans will arrive on this world, and like all worlds before, they will no doubt cause mass extinctions in its natural ecosystem. Which will be sad, but on the other hand, it will probably have statues of me everywhere. I only hope that there isn't a native species similar to the pigeon that likes to crap on statues, because honestly, I prefer my hairstyle to remain efficient. That pair was to be the first of many. In the Kyloarf sector, I found another pair of Earth-like worlds. No doubt home to completely different species of things that will crap on my statue's head. Water worlds were also found, and one wonders about the mechanics of underwater statues and whether fish can crap on their heads. But equally at this point, it's a good time to take stock of the vistas which greet me every time I prepare to jump into hyperspace. No longer just a handful of stars, the entire universe is a wall of bright stars. The core of the galaxy looks like a thick, luminous cloud. And the hyperdrive sound effects are exactly the same as before. And believe me, I've listened to it an awful lot by this point. There were other discoveries, but also I discovered that as I got closer to the core and the number of stars got denser, performance started to suffer somewhat. In particular, much cursing was made about the speed and efficiency and general annoyingness of the route finding algorithm, which would tend to get stuck in these infinite loops as it tried to evaluate more or less every single possible route. It's a combination of there being lots and lots of stars and having hyperdrive ranges that are up around 40 light years. And there are ways to help it by pretending that you have your spacecraft fully loaded and reducing your jump range, and in addition, picking routes that are close to magic number ranges that require or reduce the number of possibilities. Sometimes I wish there was a way to manually set your maximum jump range for the route computation. Something more than economical but less than fastest. Perhaps if you want it to be fairly economical but still not completely mind-numbingly boring. I actually became quite adept at editing video and writing articles and scripts at the same time as I was flying from one star to another. And I've seen demos showing that if you're playing the game in VR, it's now possible to inject like a Netflix window onto your spacecraft's dashboard. Honestly though, I'd like it if the game would have a version of the solar system map that you could pop up in the, on the face of it, something that would render the planets in the same way that the solar system map worked. So I wouldn't have to deal with that terrible pause that we get as we switch back and forth looking for Earth-like worlds. But eventually, maybe after 6 or 7 hours worth of travel and fighting with the navigation system, my trusty spacecraft finds itself just 30 light years from the core, 27.9 to be precise. Sagittarius A, 4 million times the mass of our sun, and we're about to jump right on top of this beast. And actually, I should be more specific. This is Sagittarius A star, which is a part of the larger Sagittarius A without a star radio feature near the core of the galaxy. The guy that wrote the paper, Robert Brown, used the A asterisk designation because excited states of atoms are denoted with that. And I guess he was in a very excited state when he discovered something as unexpected as this. It looks like we've discovered one other astronomical object, but let's drop out of frameshift drive and sit at a somewhat safe distance. I don't know, 65 light seconds, is that safe? This spacecraft can probably jump out if it has some issues. Look at that. So yeah, Sagittarius A star is known as a black hole because they've measured other stars moving around it. We can take pictures and we've seen the stars moving around it like a solar system. And based upon the motions that we've observed, we know that the mass of the black hole is about 3.6 million times the mass of the Sun. And on top of that, it is not alone. Within about a parsec of the black hole, there's believed to be another million solar masses or so of material that is spinning around it and slowly being brought in. We're talking about stars, gas, stellar remnants. There's at least evidence for one smaller black hole, which is probably going to get sucked in, and no doubt make some gravitational wave astronomers very excited about this millions of years from now. The system map shows there's a companion, which is a B-type star, first discovered by Zulu Romeo, the Big Blackness. And oh, that's interesting, solar mass is 500,000. Mr. Braben, I do believe you're not keeping up with current research. Anyway, for moving on from the core, I decided to take a different tack, and instead of going straight through the core, I set my course straight down. The idea, of course, being to find some less dense star lanes, but on the way, of course, I found the occasional Earth-like world, which, given that it's sitting below the plane of the galaxy, is probably getting crapped on by, black hole emissions. After a couple of hours of travelling straight down, I eventually find myself at a pale red star with a number of small, icy, airless worlds that will prove perfect for me to sit down on and take some pictures. You can see all above me is the plane of the galaxy. It's like a ceiling, it's like a roof, like a cloud layer above me. But a cloud made of hundreds of billions of stars. While in the other direction, you just see points of stars and not much in the way of nebulosity, except of course from other galaxies. There are other galaxies rendered on the skybox in Elite Dangerous, but they're not real galaxies, they're just pictures. Indeed, it's something of a challenge for explorers to see just how far out they can get, find the most inaccessible objects, find objects which just simply are beyond the jump range of any spacecraft that can be built. Now, of course, the original Elite had multiple galaxies, but the original Elite also considered that each galaxy was a collection of 256 stars, so I'm willing to retcon those galaxies away as sectors or something similar. Still, there are a couple of features from older games that I would like to see brought into Elite Dangerous, very specifically the solar system map that in Frontier Elite 2 and Frontier First Encounters was fully 3D and rotatable, and it would be nice to see that in the game. But let's talk about what we can see from this vantage point 2,000 light years below Sagittarius A star. Everything looks pink! It's pink everywhere. Probably because the star is red, and because the sky looks, I guess, kind of pinkish from all those red, long-lived stars in there. It actually happens for clouds of stars. The young clouds of stars are bluish, and then over time all the blue stars die and the long-lived red stars stay. But I'm going to stay here for now because I have a long journey back to the bubble. Until then, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.